Assumptions are inevitably made when looking at an artwork. For example, here's a small sketch made by Goya between 1816 and 1820. It shows a person holding what we assume to be their child, or maybe their grandchild. As the child rests on the strong hands, it's playing with their beard. We can also assume that the baby is loved. We can assume that the look it's given is one of love and tenderness. We, by default, assume many things when looking at any work of art. However, I'm pretty certain that one of the assumptions you've made when looking at this picture was wrong. Let's read what Goya writes under this sketch. This woman was painted in Naples by Jusepe de Ribera, called Lo Spagnoletto, about the year 1640. Let's take a brief look at Jusepe Ribera's 1631 painting, Magdalena Ventura, with her husband and son. This painting is most likely jarring for your average viewer. A woman is standing strong in the center of the composition, facing the viewer, staring at them with great intensity. She's breastfeeding her baby through her dress while her husband, in the back, poses in the shadows. The husband is frail, older, and his beard is trimmed. His 52-year-old wife, however, hasn't trimmed her beard. Next to her, an inscription orients the viewer's interpretation. Look, a great miracle of nature, Magdalena Ventura from the town of Accumulus in Samnius, in the vulgar tongue Abruzzo, in the kingdom of Naples, aged 52, and what is unusual is when she was in her 37th year, she began to go through puberty, and thus a full growth of beard appeared such that it seems rather that of a bearded gentleman than a woman who had previously lost 3 sons whom she had borne to her husband, Felice de Amici, whom you see next to her. Jusepe de Ribera, a Spaniard marked by the cross of Christ, a second Apelles of his own time, by order of Duke Ferdinand II of Alcala, Viceroy at Naples, depicted in a marvelously lifelike way, 17th February 1631. Jusepe de Ribera shows Magdalena as a woman, but otherwise shows her with characteristics which are usually associated with manliness. The strong hands, the receding hairline, and, most importantly for this painting, the beard. But before going further into this painting, let's take a look at some historical bearded women to help us put in perspective Jusepe's treatment of the subject. There are a couple of historical bearded women we could take a look at, as they were pretty popular, especially since those who didn't shave their beards usually worked in what was then called freak shows. These shows would very often be extremely dehumanizing and would exhibit disabled people for profit. Cao Farini was a victim of this industry. She was captured from Laos and then adopted by the man who financed the captors, William Leonard Hunt, also known as Guillermo Antonio Farini, or the Great Farini. Throughout her life, she'd be exploited for her looks to the point of being advertised as the bridge between humans and apes. Racism was a clear component of the industry. Julie Pastrana was, her too, exploited for her looks in a particularly dehumanizing way. The Mexican performer was given the name bear woman, ape woman, dog-faced woman, and so on. However, not all bearded women faced exploitation and oppression. Clémentine Delay, a French bearded woman, used her attributes as an advantage to her own independence. She used to shave her facial hair until she saw, at a freak show, a bearded lady which, to Clémentine, was quite unimpressive. Clémentine, believing she could grow a bigger and better beard, decided to wear it as a point of pride. Being French, she owned a cafe, and her beard contributed to the success of her business. She gained fame and fortune, and, in 1904, she was even granted the permission by the government to wear men's clothes. All this to say, the treatment of bearded women has, historically, been rather mixed. While women who didn't shave their beards could be exploited for profits, they could also wear their facial hair with pride and use it to distinguish themselves. Where does Magdalena Ventura fall on this spectrum? Well, the only account we have of her is here, on this painting. So what does Jusepe Ribera's treatment of Ventura tell us about her? Well, Ribera didn't always treat his subjects with the greatest respect. I think the best example of that can be found in The Clubfoot. He made this portrait of a boy begging in Naples, showing him smiling to explicitly depict his unappealing teeth and shedding light on his birth defect. He's holding a piece of paper on which it says, "Give me alms for the love of God." Perhaps one could read in this portrait a denunciation of the boy's situation, though given the fact that many rich patrons of the time collected these kinds of portraits for entertainment, it might be hard to defend. Magdalena Ventura with her husband and son was made for the Duke of Alcala for, we can assume, the same kind of entertainment. It's a display of, in Ribera's own terms, a great miracle of nature. However, there's a clear difference between the treatment given to the begging boy and Magdalena Ventura. Though Magdalena's portrait might have been made to complete a collection of miracles of nature, it's nonetheless a strong and honest picture. She's standing solidly in the center of the composition, and when compared to her husband, she's given many qualities. She's standing in front of him while he lurks in the shadows. She's standing strong and straight while he's hunched over. She's wearing a longer beard than he is. I love this painting not only because we can see in it today an old gender-bending portrait, but because I'm really given the impression that Jusepe de Ribera could sympathize with Magdalena. At least from our modern perspective, it doesn't seem like he's stripping her of her humanity, or made fun of her condition, or made fun of a perceived lack of femininity. I'm not given the impression that Magdalena is the butt of a joke in this portrait. Do you? Let me know what you think in the comments. In any case, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for liking and subscribing if you have already. Thank you especially to You Design Outright, Kohler, and every other patron for supporting the channel. If you also want to support the channel, check out patreon.com/thecanvas.